Like when someone's busy, when a busy person takes on another thing, there's usually a really good reason why they're taking it on.
I guess so my dad's always been an entrepreneur, so that's always been in my mind of something I wanted to do. And then I've always done sort of creative projects, and you kind of miss that in a big company because you're, most of the time, like the requirements are like very explicitly defined. And then if you have an idea, it's like, oh, I think this button should be here because it'll increase, you know, the usage or whatever. It's like a whole politics game if you have to like convince like layers up, right?
Yeah, and then you're lobbying for this button, and you're like, why did I even start?
Yeah, so then when I work,
yeah,
you get into this crazy debates over something like super small.
yeah,
But when when I build my own little video game or my own app, like you just have this creative freedom, and it feels amazing. So it's like I always miss that. So it's like once in a while I'll jump into something new, even if it doesn't take off after the fact. But it's just, I don't know, I guess I just have that creative like need.
For sure.
That like my current job maybe doesn't align fully with, right? And then what else? I don't want to get to 60 and just depend on on like my current career. Like I want to kind of like expand out, you know?
Yeah.
Ideally, I'd love other revenue sources that fund my own creative projects, and then
awesome.
I don't have to have a job, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at, you know?
So you're creating for the sake of creating in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like both for the joy, but also for investing towards a future that's more aligned with like what I want, you know? I came up with this like mission statement for me. It's like I call it the 3 Ps. Like purpose-driven, present, producer. So that's kind of what I want my life to look like, and to help others do that, right? So for example, with like the kids show, it's all centered around like real Florida locations, animals that they can see in their day-to-day, kind of inspiring them to go visit those parks.
Yeah.
So helping them, so kind of like guide them out of the digital into the analog, you know?
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you said purpose-driven, present, producer.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Got it. The 3 Ps. We love the 3 Ps. So would you say the Orlando Creator Club, that's hitting all 3 of those Ps? What we're doing right now?
Well, this one, yes, because so one of the things I've enjoyed of doing the podcast is like nowadays it's hard to get people to sit down and talk to you uninterrupted.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So
yeah, they're checking their phones,
yeah,
etc.
when you're doing a podcast, it's like there's no one around. You put your phones away.
Yeah.
And you can go into a deeper conversation, which I really love. But it's a double-edged sword because then the people consuming on the other side, you know, depending on what you're talking about, I could be feeding the beast also. So I think it's a balance of like getting the right people in here that are aligned with our mission.
Yeah.
And at least for the shows that we record, that's the case, you know. And then also like the other motivational aspect also is like the revenue side to be able to fund my projects.
Yeah, that makes sense. There you go.
It's all a circle, you know. Yeah.
Well, it seems like, so the audience for this show is basically leaders in Orlando, right? Like other people in Orlando who want to be inspired by the members of their community. Is that right?
Yeah, I want this to be hyper local for people to get to know each other. And like, you know, it's different where you listen to somebody that's like super big or whatever. It's like anybody that comes into the show, like you can meet them, you can invite them for coffee. It's like, hey, maybe the people that can help your Florida community innovators are going to be listening.
Yeah.
And then they can just reach out, you know, and we all live nearby, right? Like a lot of the listeners right now are just the conduit members themselves. So
yeah, that's true.
I love that, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is such a great audience in and of itself, I think. I was thinking on my way here about why I listen to certain podcasts, and that was one thing I was curious to ask you about, because I usually listen to podcasts for new ideas and or entertainment.
Yeah.
So I really like Malcolm Gladwell's podcast because I think he's very funny. So I'll just be driving around and laughing, but I also always learn something or have some sort of new novel idea. So for you, what podcasts do you listen to and what do you get out of them?
Yeah, it's just like, let me think about that. In my day-to-day, I don't often have the opportunity to have these types of conversations or learn about a specific branch of science or history or whatever. So that's kind of like a way to learn from the experts type thing. I'm trying to remember this history podcast that I was listening to. I think it's like a daily history like snippet or whatever.
There are some
like
good history podcasts out there.
And they just take you to different places around the world, different times, and it's just like a nice little thing. I do think, like, at least for me, if I had like an archaeologist friend, physicist friend, like if I had a friend in every field, I wouldn't have the need for those podcasts. Like, or if they were with me the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's just a way of like, you know, being able to listen to those conversations, even if those people aren't around you.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost like, I remember someone described, Ezra Klein on his podcast, he was talking about that people often use him almost as like a college replacement. He ends up being their professor in a lot of ways because he'll talk about like a deep dive into the history of Palestine, you know, the equivalent of what it would be like if you were listening to a lecture about that, or he'll bring people in who are almost college professor replacements.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like to hear like different viewpoints, how different people think.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. So even in the realm of politics, like I've done that, but that is a dangerous realm for me to get into. I don't like to spend too much time listening to those things, especially because it drains your, like podcasts in general, right? Like if you listen to them too much, they can just distract you from like the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, for example, for me that I have such limited time, I'm trying to do so much.
Yeah.
I really try to reduce that. Where like one of the things I'm doing, maybe it's not so safe, I don't know, you tell me, but I've been playing harmonica in the
interesting.
car.
That's
because it's like I'm being a producer in the car instead of listening to people.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I can.
So you're playing does it require your hands? Are your hands still on the wheel?
I'm using one hand and I'm driving with the other.
Okay, interesting.
So that's probably not so safe, but you know, I'm not doing it the whole time.
Can't you get one of those? I know Bob Dylan, right? He had one of those like headpieces for his harmonica.
Yes,
so you
but
can do
how
it
ridiculous
hands-free.
would I look, you know?
I think that'd be great.
Definitely would be safer. So there.
Yeah, be you know? Yeah, why not?
I'm just getting this picture in my head. That is amazing.
Yeah. I think that's a solution.
There you go.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so I wanted to learn a bit more about like your influences, where you grew up, and then go into Florida Community Innovators and a couple of the projects that you're working on, and then I can ask you questions there from the perspective of a software developer and the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And then for people that might be listening, from the perspective of any potential investors that might be interested in your future projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, future investors, call me. Very interested.
So were you always in Florida?
Yeah, so I grew up in Orlando. I'm the only child of 2 statisticians.
Okay.
So feel very lucky for that. I definitely won the lottery in terms of getting homework help for all my math homework. I had a nanny who I was very close to because both my parents worked. So I love my parents a lot and I love my nanny a lot. And I think seeing her family's experience, because a lot of them lived paycheck to paycheck, they really had some struggles. Seeing their experience is what inspired me to do social good work, because I loved them so much and I thought, okay, there has to be a better way. So from a very early age, I remember in 2nd grade, my parents asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and we actually have it written down. I said I wanted to be a statistician and a mayor. Which Did
you have a mayor in your family?
No, but I figured, I was just thinking about who has the most power to change things locally, and that was the first thing that came up, mayor.
Okay.
I think the statistician thing, it's definitely an honorable trade. I saw them do it, so I thought that's something I could do. I'm definitely not a statistician, but I really do enjoy data analysis, and I love working with my parents on different projects. We still work together on a lot of things.
That is really cool.
I feel really lucky, and especially now that they're retired. My dad was a professor at UCF, and my mom she mainly did antitrust stuff. So like class action lawsuits and things like that. So she's more of the programming side, and my dad's more of the theoretical side. So together,
I think
they're unstoppable.
It's an amazing, so it's a very different family dynamic than what I had. So my mom's a teacher.
Yeah.
My dad's like a serial entrepreneur, business owner. So I felt kind of isolated being like the academic, interested in science, interested in programming. Like I couldn't talk about these things with them, or I tried, but like they didn't really understand.
It seems like you're following in their footsteps, though. I mean, you do your entrepreneurship things, your different projects, and it seems like with the podcast, you have the goal of education. So I see entrepreneur and teacher in your path for sure.
Which is weird because it's like a cycle that just came back like organically, you know. But that's just really cool to think about. Like, what if my parents were coders and we just have a hackathon over the weekend? You know,
we're gonna do some data analysis after this. I really like it too because they help me check things. So they help me make sure things are right, which is huge. Not many people have that privilege.
growing up, one of the things that that made me grow an interest in science was like things like Discovery Kids.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you ever watched the Magic School Bus.
Of course, yeah.
That is my favorite. Like,
oh, phenomenal.
I still watch it now. You know, they make new seasons, and I sit down with the kids and make them watch.
Oh, so you're making them watch the shows you watched growing up.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so you've just skipped over the modern generation of television. Have you just taken them back to the 90s?
Well, they watch some of the new stuff, but my approach ideally would be to like introduce them to media like in chronological order.
Oh, fun.
So it's like I don't want them to go straight to the VR headset, you know, like.
You can start with Scooby-Doo and like work your way through the history of cartoons, maybe.
Well, they got scared of Scooby-Doo right now.
Did they really?
So 4 and 2.5. I don't know.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's how they are, but yeah, like I would sit them down and play Pong first.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Slowly over time, like I don't want them to be playing like Roblox at like age 5. So I'm like, let's slow it down, you know.
Yeah.
So you can get a sense of the history of this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big thing for me, Magic School Bus, and then my dad got me like this. So before the internet was so accessible, there were these like offline encyclopedias. You could, put the CDs
of course.
in.
Yeah.
And then it had like a planet simulation.
Oh, so
in
good.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever played around with
Oh, of
things
course.
like that.
Yeah, the best.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so fast forward to now.
Yeah.
You've got your Florida Community Innovators, and you talked about a couple projects when you were here.
Yeah.
The first one was around recycling in Miami.
That's one of our newest ones, actually. I'm really excited about that one because how it came about was the city of Miami was going to cut their recycling program.
Yeah.
Because people don't recycle well. I don't think that's just a Miami problem.
Yeah.
I think that's a United States problem, but it was particularly apparent in Miami. People do a lot of wish cycling, so they're trying to recycle something that's not actually recyclable. They'll recycle incorrectly, recycle things that have food contamination, for example. And the city was going to cut their program. There was a big public outcry. They ended up not cutting it, but the county knew, okay, we need to do something different. We need to help people recycle. So this is a county-funded project, Florida Community Innovation, the organization I lead. Our students are building this app called Encyclopedia in partnership with another nonprofit called Dream and Green. And we're actually doing focus groups this week to test it, which I'm really excited about. So there are gamified elements, so you can play games to learn how to recycle. There are also some really interesting elements. The students are taking it in different directions. Originally, we were just going to do a barcode scanner to see if something was recyclable or not, but they're using some other elements like some computer vision and things like that. So you can just take a picture of something and it'll tell you whether or not it's recyclable. I think this is really important, especially when the data is geolocated, so we can see where you're trying to recycle, because different municipalities in Miami-Dade have different recycling rules.
Okay.
So I think this app really solves a problem, will hopefully be fun for people. It's also been a great experience for our students because Florida Community Innovation, the organization I lead, it's very student-centered. So I do it as a volunteer so we can pay our students. And we have students from 6 different universities, a lot of computer science students, but it's interdisciplinary. We got the poli-sci kids too. And they build tech products, do research, and engage in outreach to make Florida better. So Encyclopedia is one of the projects. We're also building a resource directory with Central Florida as the pilot to help social and community workers find and manage information about food banks, job resources, and more. And we've been doing some stuff with AI that I'm really excited about. So if anybody watching this has AI expertise, I think the students are starting to hit the end of what a student can do, and they're needing more professional mentorship. So we're definitely seeking that. But yeah, in terms of FCI's needs, we always love taking on cool projects. We always want more funds to pay the students because I think paying the students is an equity issue. By paying our students, we're able to have more first-generation college student engagement and more students who wouldn't otherwise be able to use their degree for an internship. Like, we get a lot of students who maybe they work at Publix and also go to school, and if this wasn't paid, they wouldn't be able to do it. I think you mentioned before we started recording something similar, like you were working and going to school.
Yeah,
you know what it's like.
Yeah, I was at the Florida Mall, full-time student, and working like evening shifts at Macy's.
Yeah.
And, like, that kind of thing.
It's hard.
So I definitely...
You wouldn't have had time for an unpaid internship, right? Or did you do...
I did at the very end just because it was like a part of the senior project.
Okay, so you had to.
It was like they were helping us because we needed some equipment. We were doing like a flight simulator, and they had like one of the pieces that we needed, so we made a kind of deal like that.
Yeah.
But at that time, I did have to quit the other job because
Yeah.
it was just impossible.
Yeah, you're
so I
just
totally
gonna
get it.
collapse.
Yeah.
like there's no more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think paying the students is really important. It has been hard though because I have been doing some consulting work and then paying the students from that.
Wow.
I compared it to my friend I told my friend the other day, I'm like, it's the equivalent of selling plasma to pay your tuition and then being too tired to do your homework for the classes you just paid for. So it's definitely wearing me out, and we need to find a more sustainable source of funding somehow. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Let me check on something real quick just to make sure I didn't completely screw this up. Okay, we're good.
Oh, good. Always important.
Don't worry, we edit all that out.
Oh, perfect. No, it'll keep it real. Keep it in. But yeah, no, I'm tired for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's super
find...
important, but I like doing it. But yeah, I think we definitely need like some sort of like sustainable corporate sponsor year after year or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. But I think it's really honorable that you're just trying to keep it going however you can,
Yeah.
Because
I think it's important, and we have a lot of buy-in. I think we're doing something right that so many students want to be a part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your like personal mission? Just taking a step back, because you're said like you're really working hard to get this thing moving, and you got other things going on. So
Yeah.
What's behind all that?
Yeah. So every day I just try to do the most good I can, and I think my mission is to get as many people involved in social good projects, especially through science and technology. So just fostering a better world in whatever means I can.
When you were here last time, you said something really cool. I don't know who you quoted, but it was something like, if you don't like the news, go out and make your own.
Oh,
right?
Wes Nisker, yeah. He was a radio announcer back in, I think, the 80s, 70s and 80s.
Yeah, so that really resonated with me, even with like the content studio stuff. Like, if I don't like the content that is out there, I'm just gonna make my own.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's a way to solve it.
Yeah, 100%.
Instead of just sitting there.
Yeah, we all have a voice.
Yeah.
We all have agency. We can all do something.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay, with the recycling project, I actually have another project for you.
Okay.
So I live in Winter Garden.
Nice.
And this year they sent us a letter.
Oh, no.
With the same problem. They were saying that like, we're going to stop recycling because we did a study and it didn't seem worth the extra cost because only a small percentage of what was going out was getting actually recycled. So do you think part of that is just people not being educated on what they're putting into the recycling bin?
And doing it wrong.
And doing it wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's more on like the community education aspect that like we need to get better at.
Well, reduce, reuse, recycle, right?
Yeah.
The first step is just producing less waste.
Yeah.
I think we can all do that. And that's what I think we should really push. But reuse is big, right? As much as we can. But yeah, for the recycle piece, I think also recycling is really uneven. There are certain types of recycling that go further than others. So when you're recycling aluminum or glass, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Okay.
So I think rather than saying, we're just going to cut this entire program, it might make more sense to say we're scaling it back. We're only recycling the heavy hitters, Okay. But people also recycle incorrectly with food contamination and things like that. So community education is definitely a piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Walk me through how this started. So how did the idea come about?
Yeah, so Dream and Green, the nonprofit we work with in Miami, I've known them for a while, and they've been great mentors to me, the two people who lead that, Barbara and Alex. And I think part of it is because the city of Miami wanted to cut their recycling program, so they'd had Encyclopedia for a while. Oh, no worries. Oh my gosh, you don't have a phone case? That's so scary to me.
Living on the edge.
Yeah. Does it crack regularly? Like, do you get new phones?
This has lasted for a long time.
Okay.
I am surprised.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, for real.
I'm really not doing it right.
Yeah, I rely on my OtterBox for sure. Super important to me. But yeah, no, so Barbara and Alex brought us in because of the issues that Miami was facing with recycling, and they had been developing Encyclopedia for a while, and they were interested in bringing our students in to have a student project. So I think that's part of FCI's mission. We try to build relationships with local leaders, local community members, just inspiring people across Florida. And then that helps us create real sustainable community-based opportunities for our students. We're not just like parachuting in and creating something for people. We're always partnering with some sort of trusted local leadership on every project we do.
So maybe after you finish your work in Miami, you can come to Winter Garden and
Sure.
talk to them.
Well,
You
I
can
mean,
figure out a
they
way
could just
to
use the app.
Okay.
We would just we'd have to use their data because we're
Okay.
pulling in from Miami what is recyclable, what's not.
Okay.
But yeah, if Winter Garden just wants to share their data with us, we could definitely create a version of the app for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk to them. I know I had a lot of neighbors that were just livid about it. They were just so angry that they were cutting the program, you know.
I think people
Yeah.
hate the idea of giving up. They're not going to recycle correctly. Like your neighbors are probably out there throwing styrofoam into their recycling bin incorrectly, but then they're angry at the idea that we would give up, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then so as a developer, right? Are you guys functioning kind of like a little startup? Like you have your like group of developers that are with you on this, or is it more of an open source where anyone can come in and help you out? Like how does this?
We're functioning like a little startup.
Yeah.
So the format that's worked for us that we've iterated since around 2020 is so I'm the executive director. I am basically a glorified accountant. The buck stops with me. If something goes wrong, I step in. But I'm not technical, so I'm very lucky in that a lot of my friends are. So we have a really young board. I'm the oldest person on the board, and I'm 30. So we have a lot of recent grads on our board, and a lot of people who came through the University of Florida. That's just how it happened. Even though we have participation from other universities, a lot of Gators tend to gravitate toward FCI. Go Gators! But yeah, we have a very young board of a lot of software engineers, but we try to keep it student centric. So we have that governance structure of me as a volunteer, our volunteer board of mentors, technical mentors.
Okay.
And then we have all these nimble student teams. So across different projects, either the resource map or Encyclopedia, we have one project that actually got some funding from the city of Gainesville that's focused on gentrification. So it's a GIS gentrification mapping project. So we have that project too. All these different projects. We all meet on Wednesdays. We typically have a guest speaker. We'd love to bring you in. We bring in a lot of jobs people because a lot of the students are really nervous about jobs.
Right.
So people who can tell them about interesting careers. So we book someone from NVIDIA, which I'm really excited about. Just people too, like if maybe they interview at these places, there'll be a friendly face. But they can also, we try to structure our Wednesday sessions. So part of it is just inspiring these students, and the other part of it can be getting advice from that person. So we had a UX designer speak to the students 2 weeks ago. He's a PhD student at the University of Michigan, but he used to do UX for the Department of Defense. So he was able to talk about his unconventional career path. He was a first-generation college student as well. And then after that, after 30 minutes or so, we showed him some of our designs for the Encyclopedia games, and he was able to give us some real feedback. So I think splitting up the talks helps all the students across teams come together and feel like they're really part of one organization, but then get specific feedback. So we have our main weekly meeting that makes us feel like a real org with all of our volunteer mentors and all the students who are working on different things. And then we have nimble stand-ups across the different projects. So the resource map has their own stand-up, and they typically do breakout rooms for their front-end team, their back-end team, and this new team that we're calling data management, where they're pretty much just working on building an AI tool to generate some profiles for like food pantries and things like that. We have our nimble teams there. We have our Encyclopedia breakout, of course. We have a breakout for the gentrification project. We have a public affairs breakout for students who just write grants.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the combination of nimble stand-ups, but meeting every week, and student project managers reporting to our board members makes things work well.
Okay. If anyone listening is interested in maybe joining,
please come by. Our meetings are on Zoom on Wednesdays, so you're more than welcome to join.
So just reach out to you on LinkedIn or?
You can go to floridainnovation.org. We're trying to get better about having real processes because if too much is just coming through my email inbox, it starts getting dropped. So we have Google Forms now.
Nice. Perfect.
We're learning and growing.
Progress.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the resource map now.
Yeah.
I went into the website. It looked like people can submit different locations.
So how we're doing it right now is we've been developing it for a while. We've gotten support from a few different community foundations in the state. One problem we've scoped with different research projects, so our University of Michigan and Georgetown students really hit on this, is a lot of resource directories struggle because the info goes out of date really quickly, especially recently with all the budget cuts. Let's say I run a homeless shelter. Maybe I've cut the number of days that I do intakes from 2 to 1 just because I've lost my housing and urban development grant. That doesn't often get updated on lists of resources on the internet, so people will still show up and get disappointed. And the social workers spend a lot of time just calling people to try to figure out like what's happening. So there are some real inefficiencies in the referral process. And we want to help other resource directories. We don't view ourselves as a competitor. We're a nonprofit. We're not trying to make money. But what we've landed on is we want to get lists of resources from our foundation partners, like the Central Florida Foundation. So they'll be able to tell us, okay, these 500 nonprofits agreed to be listed. And then we're building out this AI tool so it auto-generates profiles for them from their social media accounts and their websites. And the idea is those could just be regularly scraped, like every 2 weeks or so.
Oh, right.
To catch more updates.
The problem,
yeah. Because people don't update their resource directory
Yeah.
entry. If I run a mental health nonprofit for kids, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I already had to lay off 2 of my staff because I lost my federal grant. The last thing I want to do is go in and update my entry in a resource directory, which is why they almost always fail. So I'm really excited about this AI tool, and I think what the students have done is really cool and really impressive. And we definitely need mentors to help with it. So if you have any software engineer friends who you think would be interested in this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I already have a couple people in mind that work right here. So,
amazing.
I'll tell them about it.
I think it will really save lives because, one example is like of incorrect resource info causing problems is there's this organization in Brevard County, Matthews Hope, that's incorrectly listed on one of the main resource directories. They're listed as a shelter, but they actually don't do overnight services. They just do services during the day. So if you're a homeless person, you can go and get a shower and things like that. But that leads to a lot of problems because people will show up expecting overnight services and they can't get it. So I think this tool would catch things like that and create a more up-to-date profile. So yeah, we would love help from anybody.
Awesome. Let's see. One of the challenges also with like the resource thing is like getting people to use it, just like any other software project.
I don't
like
think so, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think that the audience is there. Especially, we've done some pilots, especially in the Paramore area with the community workers there. And right now they're working off spreadsheets that become outdated really quickly. So just a paper list of resources. So no, people are ready.
So walk me through like getting the word out. Like the resource map is there. Is it more about partnering with organizations that are serving those communities already?
Yeah, I don't want to create more administrative burden on them. I think what I would want to do first, once we get this AI thing working, is contact all the resource directories that exist and just offer it to them for free.
Okay.
Because if they have better data, a rising tide lifts all boats, you know?
Okay.
And they may not, for whatever reason, if they don't want to work with us, that's totally fine. Like, we wish them the best. And then otherwise, I was just planning on emailing every community center in the state of Florida.
There you go.
And saying, hey, here's a free tool.
Yeah.
And we can do trainings if people want it. It also depends on how much funding we get. I think we've scoped a real minimum viable product. It's, if we don't get funding to pay the students to do these trainings, that's fine. We can still just deliver the resource map. But I think the more funding, the better, because from our pilot in Paramore, we found that a lot of social and community workers are on the older side.
Yeah.
And they appreciate, even though they're totally capable, they appreciate someone holding their hand a little bit to learn how to use something the first time. So yeah, I think a little bit of funding for some community trainings would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the future like in the next 1-2 years for this community innovation?
For Florida, for FCI, my dream would be, so we have really good partnerships with a few different schools. I think I would love to do it full time. So to support my time, it'd be nice to get a salary. And then we've had like a lot of heavy hitters out of state. And as much as I love getting the best talent from like UC Berkeley, Georgetown, American, Michigan to work on Florida problems, it'd be nice to have a lot of buy-in from Florida universities.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have an FCI class at every Florida university where computer science students, as well as data science and poli-sci students, can work together in interdisciplinary teams, get a small stipend, and get course credit for different FCI projects.
You hit on a really important point. I'm just thinking back at college and how when you're learning as a software developer, like you are given these ridiculous problems that don't exist or were solved like decades ago, right? I mean, it's nice because they get you to like write code and start learning, but like there are all these problems around us. Like, why not just start there?
Yeah. Well, I think you need the quality control, which I think FCI can provide, because I've seen a lot of student projects cause issues because the students will jump in. But I think like we help solve part of the problem in that we have the existing community relationships, so we can embed the students in the place where they can do some good.
Yeah, and if you have some, some tech mentorship and some tech leads that can oversee the whole thing, then, that should help.
Yeah, and they love it. Yeah. We've had really good tech mentors in Gainesville. I try to be respectful of their time because we've been leaning on them a lot, which is why I've been trying to get more mentors. But I think it's enjoyable for them. Like one of our mentors, Clark, by day, he does a lot of like software engineering for defense work. But then by night, he gets to mentor the FCI students. I know he's told me he finds that really rewarding to just like help them solve a problem. So I think it's enjoyable for the tech mentors too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got FCI. You are also doing this science communications role.
Yeah, so I work at CitSci, which is it's a platform based out of Colorado State University, but operates globally, where people can start their own science projects. So let's say I want to monitor an endangered species in my community. I can set up a data form on CitSci, and then people can submit data through that. And CitSci has a lot of tools to like visualize results, to do the data analysis, things like that. I have found that really rewarding. We've had some really interesting projects come through lately. So we're doing this one thing called the Extremophiles campaign, where people are able to test their dishwashers, their shower heads, anywhere you can find slime in your house, and by doing that, and water heaters were big. I tested my water heater because the creatures that thrive there, the microbes, they are able to do things like eat carbon dioxide, and they have all sorts of interesting properties. Those conditions that you find in your dishwasher are very similar to deep sea thermal vents. So the creatures that thrive there could hold the key to addressing climate change, right? If we're able to figure out, okay, they're eating carbon in this particular way, how can we apply that to different technologies? So that's been a really fun project, getting people to explore the uncharted terrain of their own homes to find these extreme microbes.
So you're telling me the secret to life is in my dishwasher?
It could be, or your water heater. Yeah, or your shower head.
Have you ever heard of this app, Merlin?
Oh yeah.
The birding app?
Yeah, they're great.
I love it. Yeah. I'm one of those people just identifying birds
it's
and
phenomenal.
Like sending the data up.
Yeah.
It's just a great hobby,
Yeah, I actually worked with them on a grant last year. With SciStarter is my other citizen science gig.
Okay.
They're like the big database, so all these projects that you can host on CitSci, SciStarter has them in their database as well as projects from other platforms. So it's where you go to find a citizen science project. So a project where a member of the public can do science. And Merlin's listed on there.
Cool.
And all sorts of projects. You can help Alzheimer's researchers analyze their data. You can help design RNA-based vaccines. You can monitor rainfall to understand climate change. There are infinitely many citizen science projects out there. And that's what pays the bills. I feel really grateful that the thing that pays the bills is also something that makes the world a better place.
That is aligned with your mission. That is great. Now, for those that aren't familiar with Merlin, you should totally download it.
It's great.
It allows you to identify birds based on answering a few questions, but they recently updated it where you can even record a sound.
Yeah.
And it'll try to find it.
So
and it's
cool.
actually very accurate.
Yep.
So it's like having a real life Pokédex, if you were into Pokemon growing up. So I often go with my kids on hikes and use that,
I'm interested to see how accurate. So one thing that I ran into, so I've been doing citizen science work since 2018, and a lot of it's been global, especially with SciStarter and CitSci. Some of these projects that have the auto identifications don't work as well in places like Australia because a lot of the data it's trained on is United States centric. So I'd be interested to use Merlin in like Australia. Maybe they've cracked the code, but I remember iNaturalist, which is another app where you can they have some AI tools to identify different species. They were really struggling in Australia for a minute there. I haven't checked back in.
I think that's why people should focus on their local community and do this crowdsource activities, right? Because the solution that might work for Florida might not be the same for the Northeast.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, and the more
nice
data, the better,
involved.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
They do these things called bioblitzes. So Australia has been doing them, so that's probably made their iNaturalist data set better, where as many people as possible document as many different plants and animals as possible, and then the AI is trained from that to help with the identifications.
Okay.
So bioblitzes are super fun. I've done a few bioblitzes in my day. Yeah.
It's a great name.
Yeah. No, every year there's a big global bioblitz called the City Nature Challenge, where people try to document as much urban nature as possible around the world.
Okay.
So all the different cities compete to see who can identify the most species. And they've discovered new species through that, like different citizen scientists around the world, or they've rediscovered species that were thought to be extinct. This wasn't part of the City Nature Challenge, but someone on iNaturalist found like this type of Colombian weasel that had never been photographed before.
Nice.
And documented it. So that was pretty cool. So yeah.
Were you the little girl in the backyard just like catching lizards? Were you
No,
that type of...
I was actually more interested in history as a kid.
Oh, okay.
I think I've come into science and technology. I'm intrinsically interested in it
Yeah.
for sure, but I look at it more so through the social good angle. So
Yeah.
how can this be applied for a better world? Like there are other
Yeah.
people who I think are better, like pure scientists. I took entomology electives in college and things
Okay.
like that. But that was more to challenge myself. Like in my spare time, I tend to listen to history podcasts and like more cultural podcasts. And to me, I see science and technology as the powerful tools that we can use for a better society.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a great point. I mean, right now there's this whole like conversation with AI and like,
Yeah.
you know, you've got people super terrified and you've got people like, oh, this is gonna make me millions, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just like any technology. It's like we have the choice on how to apply it.
Yeah, for sure.
So at least you're really focused on using it for the right thing. So it's
Yeah,
great.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think we
Why
can
not?
do
Yeah.
great stuff with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the resource map is the perfect use case of AI. It's solving a problem that people would never solve on their own. Yeah.
So my wife sprained her ankle on Friday. I was
Yeah.
telling you about this, and it just showed me how important technology can be to like
Yeah.
save people's lives. Like, 'cause like we were in a different part of town
Wow.
so I didn't know where the nearest like urgent care or anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like just having a phone that's connected that I can see like, okay, what's the nearest urgent care? Which one is still open?
Yeah.
Can be a lifesaver. Like
For
if
sure.
that would have happened to us like 30, 40 years ago.
You would have pulled out your atlas from your dashboard in your
I mean,
car.
I guess I'd have to run around, knock people's houses
That's
and see like who can take me to the nearest hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. No, I love technology. I think I wouldn't want to live in any other era but this one. I think the
for
fact
sure.
that, I mean, we focus on the negatives of it.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that we're exposed to so many new ideas is such a gift.
I think it's definitely a great era for someone that wants to use their agency and make a change, right? There's just so many tools out there now. So that is exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned earlier like the attention aspect. It's one reason you like doing these podcasts is you don't get to just focus on something. I would say that's the main downside of our era, that attention is our main currency and
Yeah.
that people feel so frantic and they're just being bombarded by different stimuli. But
Yeah.
I think we can design things better. It doesn't have to be bad, you know?
Yeah.
It's just things have been designed that way, but we could do it differently.
And we can come up with new solutions. To
Yeah.
that, you know, so I was thinking of offering this experience because I interviewed my dad as a sort of keepsake for like future
Oh,
generations.
so nice.
And we have it like unlisted as a private YouTube.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, maybe other people want to do this. Like, what if I offer an experience to like force families to reconnect?
Oh, that's so
Where
good.
you come in and you have like an hour-long guided conversation. Maybe I have some conversation
Yeah.
cards for you to like get to know your family members a little better. And then like based on what you guys talk about there, we can come up with like different keepsakes, you know, little storybooks.
You can make a time capsule. For
Make a
them.
little time
Yeah.
capsule. There you go. So I think as these problems appear, we should be thinking of ways of solving them like that. You know?
Or even just in the day to day, like
Yeah.
I think cell phones are the new cigarettes in some ways, in terms of the addictive nature of it
Yeah.
and how it's reducing people's quality of life. I feel there. I mean, obviously, I'm not a designer, but I feel like there has to be a better way to design cell phones so we keep the positives of getting the information you want and the new ideas, but without the negatives of fraying your attention span.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole conversation, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, if I was in the board
Yeah.
and I could help make some decisions for the big
Yeah.
apps, you know, it'd be different. But
Yeah.
that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally you'd want to tune the recommender system to align with your long-term goals, not your short-term goals,
Yeah.
right? And that's the problem we have right now, right? But if you can manage to use it, it's like I don't think you should be fully connected globally all day, right? So it's like maybe you define like from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm just going all over the place. I'm going to find out what's going on all over the world, and then the rest of your day you're just local.
Yeah.
That's way better than just
That could
the
be interesting.
the cigarette pattern. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Where you're just scrolling. One piece of advice I heard, I listened to this podcast called Offline with John Favreau, where he talks about the role of social media in society and how it's changing our brains. But he was talking about how when you find yourself doom scrolling, ask yourself why. At like,
Yeah.
what emotion is this satisfying? Are you trying to escape from something? are like, I think you hit the nail on the head about intentionality.
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of our technology use doesn't have the intentionality inside of it, so it'd be way better to be intentional and be like, this is my focused exploration time. Now it's my focused local time, you know?
Yeah. I recently reopened an Instagram. I
Okay.
have been away from that for
Yeah.
years, but for promoting the kids show.
Yeah.
So I was more intentional about picking what I consume, and all you see is like nature conservationists,
so nice.
like people going into the Everglades,
Yeah.
like just crazy Florida animal
Yeah.
videos. You know, like I saw one of a group of sandhill cranes like bullying a gator. I don't know.
Oh, that's
I'm
fascinating.
not sure what the
Yeah.
reasoning is behind what you see, but
Yeah.
like they just spread their wings and surround the gator and just kind of
Yeah.
like, try to intimidate him to go.
Yeah.
And one of them, they were even like crossing the street with the gator, and it looked like they were like making the car stop so the gator could cross.
Oh,
It's
fascinating.
hilarious. Anyways, that account is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
everything I'm recommended right now is just
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know?
Yeah.
But-
You're like, let's keep this algorithm as is.
Hopefully
yeah.
it stays like that. you
Yeah.
know? But yeah.
Cool.
Did you have anything else you want to talk about?
No,
Any
this
questions
was-
to me? Or?
No, I mean, I
Yeah.
think we covered it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where I was just curious about like why you wanted to do this whole podcast and creator club. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. What do you think is next for it? How do you think it'll progress?
I think we just have to, when you start a new habit, you have to get through those 90 days where things become more automatic, right? So I definitely want to have like at least one interview a week.
Oh, nice.
And I want to reduce the time from like interviewing to publishing and not focus so much at this point in time and making it like this incredible production, you know, because you have to take things one step at a time, right? And so for example, right now I've only got one camera angle, but I can do 3 camera angles. It just increases the time of editing.
Yeah.
So, over time we'll like increase the production quality.
Probably
And then
better to reduce the barriers right now, though.
reduce the barriers, especially for us. I mean, if it's a client and they want a specific level of quality, we'll do that. But that's the goal, just to make it easy. And we've already seen the benefits. Like it used to take me, like, let's say if I'm going to do something like this in a different room or whatever, I'd have to remember to bring all the equipment
Oh,
in.
no.
And then take me like 15 minutes to set up and then
Yeah.
make sure that no one's using that room. So
Yeah.
just having a dedicated space is amazing, right? So right now I'm just, starting to add more people to the guest list and created a Google form for people to fill out beforehand also. So I'm just like refining the process.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's
So-
so peaceful in here. This is just a nice place to hang out, you know?
Yeah.
So, I feel
Cool.
like that's a benefit of you having this space. Do you ever just come here and get your work done? Or
Oh yeah, I'm actually here like maybe half the time doing
Perfect.
my software engineering stuff.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
It's like
awesome.
2 for the price of 1.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for chatting with
Cool.
me today.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and
We'll
thanks
do it again
viewers
sometime.
for watching. We
Yeah.
appreciate you all.